of course, it's going to go for any of the tools, but even when work is intended, make sure that you're wearing eye protection for things that go flying. How about our group 2? What tool did you have, and so on and so forth? Group 2 was you were the impact driver. Can you tell us about the impact driver?
Impact driver.
Microphone?
Oh, well, I never used it.
Did you get a chance to look
That's
over
what I
the
can tell you. I was just there. Yeah, no one's around. But the impact driver, settings on here. There's 1, 2, and 3. I guess they're the strength, how much of an impact.
Mm-hmm.
This one has a light on there.
Good for working in attics.
In attics, I suppose for an impact driver.
It's got a lot of the same controls, some of the same controls as the drill. One of the main differences with the impact driver is that it's not going to twist your hand, because anytime it encounters resistance, it's going to do a click, click, click thing, which is good for both pounding in the torque direction, but also kind of protecting your hand, because it's not going to really send that torque into your hand the way that a drill would. At least the drill when it's not in the clutch mode. But yeah, mainly it's used for making attachments, as opposed to the drill is more for making holes. And
when the battery's low, it's just going to stop.
Right. All the batteries have indicators for whether they're 1, 2, or 3, or 0 if it's totally dead. And then the other thing we didn't talk about that applies to both the drill and the impact driver is that there's forward, reverse, and there's also a neutral, which is more of a lock. Can you show everyone how that works on the impact driver?
I don't.
All right.
Also, the difference between an impact driver and a regular one is this one goes a little, it pounds as well, so it's creating more pressure, so it's really good for installing things. But there's this button right here, and it's forward, reverse, or right in the middle is the neutral. If you're handing it to somebody and you've got a drill bit on here and you don't want it to start because it could catch on someone's clothing or what have you, you want to always put it in the middle when you're handing it to somebody.
And when it's in the middle, the button won't fall.
Right,
You can verify
right.
that's when it's in the middle.
It locks everything out.
And he's got these numbers: high, low, medium, high impact.
Yeah.
Oh,
1,
yeah.
2, 3.
We'll typically keep it on the higher impact side of things.
But what for the roof? When would we use the impact driver? Is that for the nut?
It's for drilling the lag screws into the roof. It's for attaching the rails to the feet, and it's for attaching the panels to the rails. So pretty much all the major attachments are going to be done with the impact driver.
Oh.
That's a belt hook. So if you don't want it to slide off the roof, you can hook it into a pocket or your belt, and that'll keep it on you.
And you need a key, or how is it?
That's a good point. So it's not super obvious how you take bits in and out with this, like with the truck. That's a little more standard that people are used to, that you can loosen it and you can put the bit in and then you can tighten it again. With the impact driver, you have bits that are specifically designed to go in. It's kind of like a hex shape, and you just push it to go in, but to pull it out, you have to pull on this little kind of nipple here, and then that releases it. And if you have trouble releasing it, give it to me. Sometimes it does get jammed up, and there's ways to pull it out, but generally it's just a matter of pulling this and then pulling the bit out. So it's kind of a two-handed operation. What about group 3?
Okay.
So you show and I'll talk.
Okay.
Okay, so this looks like a circular saw, but it's actually a chop saw because it's been modified to work as a chop saw. And this tool is going to be used to cut the metal things.
The rails.
The rails in particular. So you can see it's modified so that the rails can slide right through that wooden case. And he's demonstrating how you can lift up, and then when you are ready to make a cut, you can pull down very slowly into the rail, which is a fairly soft metal, and cut it. And of course
This is the lock, so to raise it up, you have to unlock it here.
Yeah.
Raise it up. Put the rod through.
Okay, so he is showing you now where the trigger is, where you will start and stop that.
And the trigger won't work if you don't push this in at the same time.
Yeah, so there's a safety switch that's out by default. You have to actively push the
You
safety.
have to hold it in. If you don't hold that in, the trigger won't go.
And then once you hold it in and it goes, you can release
No,
the
you gotta
trigger,
keep
or you have
holding
to
it in.
hold it in the whole time.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, you hold it in the whole time.
I mean, it's best to hold it the whole time. If you have the trigger pulled all the way, I think you can release your thumb. But yeah, once you let go of it, you have to actively push the button again in order to get it started. The most important thing is don't start it when it's directly touching the metal. It'll kick. You want to get the blade going full speed and then take it as slowly as possible through the cut. The slower you take the cut, the cleaner the cut's going to be.
Now, as a circular saw, it has a safety feature of a shield that comes down over the saw, but that's been disabled to use it in this manner as a chop saw. It's the shield is being held up out of place. So a couple of things. One, be careful not to, the wire that's holding it up does not want to get against the blade because that will be not fun. You'll make a lot of sparks and things. And also you want to be really careful not to put your hand down there because you could cut your hand off. So it's your probably right hand is going to be on the trigger away from that, and your other hand will be holding the rail. Right. So that's probably not going to be a huge.
So it's a one-man job, or is this a one-person job, I'm sorry, or is this?
I'm assuming so, although
You can be one
perhaps.
person, but you can also have a helper.
Yeah, because you need your rail to be held straight. If it comes in at a slight angle, you could have a bit
I'm
of a tweak to
thinking,
the cut.
Yeah,
So
you
really
you
have
usually
somebody
have the rail up on something at the other end. I know if I'm cutting wood, I'm going to
Yeah.
have the other end of my wood elevated.
I mean, the rails are so long that it's not the end of the world if there's a slight angle on it, but oftentimes we will have someone hold it up or we will prop it on something so it's a level cut. I've done it both ways, so in a pinch it can be done with one person, but best to have someone else around, and also someone who knows where to grab the first aid kit if it becomes necessary. If someone doesn't follow the safety procedures and gets their hand where it shouldn't be. It's a very serious tool. It's a very open-bladed tool that we haven't had any accidents with it, but we always do our rail cutting on the ground, not on the roof, so that we're ready. And in general, we're not going to mess with that switch there because we don't want to get that wire out of place and
And one
create
of the
additional
things-
dangers.
One of the things you mentioned to us too is to put the battery in kind of at the last moment.
That's right. You can align your metal to your mark and do that before you even put the battery in. That way there's no chance of misfiring it, accidentally holding both the safety and the trigger before you intend to. Don't put the battery in until you're really seriously ready to make a cut.
Are you suggesting we should take the battery out every time we change
Honestly,
changing
we're only
the-
going to do 4 cuts on this job, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to put the tool away for the rest of the day.
Oh.
So it's not going to get a whole lot of use, but it's something I want everyone to be aware of. And as far as like what are the things that could go wrong even when it's used as intended, and granted we're not 100% using it as it's intended to begin with, but things that can go wrong are the ear damage from noise, sparks and shavings flying everywhere. Even when everything works right, you have to be aware of just always wearing your personal protective equipment.
I had a question about the wire. Could you go over that real quick again?
Yeah. So the wire is normally when this is a freestanding tool that you use for plywood.
Yeah.
There's a little cover that would cover. It would fall around and it would be pushed away by the wood that you're actually cutting. In this case, we're using it as a chop saw, so we need this blade to be exposed. And fortunately, most of the time it's not very exposed because you have this back here and you have the wooden box. So there's not as many opportunities to get your hand in there, but by default, this cover would swing all the way around to the front, and you wouldn't get anything done with it. So we did have to disable that safety,
Okay.
and we just want to be careful to leave the metal wire as is. If you mess with it too much, you might get it in the path of the blade. So as is, it's fine, and we don't want to mess with this switch and the wire too much. We just want to leave it the way it's been working.
Brian explained that the reason we're doing this modification, instead of using the regular chop size, that some of his operations don't have access to electricity, and so they needed a battery-operated chop saw.
And chop saws, for whatever reason, are usually sold as powered tools, with a power cord as opposed to battery operated. So this was our way of making a battery powered chop saw. And then finally we have group 4. What do you have there?
Sawzall, and so again, it's a battery-powered one. Right now, the battery's not in it, but when it's in it, there's a lock here. This lock works differently than the lock on the circular saw, and that once you unlock it, you can hit the trigger multiple times. So you need to be aware of that, and then if you're not going to be actually making a cut, you could put it back in the lock position, so that locks out the trigger. Another thing with this one is, once you have a blade in there, you're likely to use it. You probably only have the right blade for the kind of job of work we're cutting on, so you probably don't worry about which blade it is, because the teeth are different for different kinds of material. But when it's in there, it's always out there, and it's always sharp, and it's always pointy. So just where it is, where you're setting it down, if you set it down at all, you need to be aware of that blade.
What are we using this saw for?
I don't know. I've never done this.
Good question. The saw is primarily going to be used for cutting conduit, and the reason this one's not as dirty as some of the other tools is that in practice I usually use my own personal sawzall. I have one that's made by Milwaukee that bounces a little bit better in my hand. Generally, I'm the one using the reciprocating saw, but it's still something I want people to be aware of. And then, for consistency's sake, I demonstrate the DeWalt Sawzall because that's the one I have an instruction manual for. But they work essentially the same way. They both have a back and forth motion. They can be used different ways. You can use them to cut into drywall. If you carefully start it against the drywall like this, you can cut in and slowly go into the wall and then make your cut downwards. You want to be aware of any electrical wires that might be in the wall if you're using it that way. But generally speaking, it's mostly just going to be me using it to cut conduit to size, because not only we bend the conduit, we also cut it to go into connectors and cut it to size that we need it. So it's something that can be done on the ground. Sometimes I'll also do it on the roof, but when anyone is using the reciprocating saw or the Sawzall, as it's more informally called, make sure that everyone around is wearing eye protection. Probably ear protection is not as necessary if this one doesn't get as loud like the rails, but definitely eye protection when it comes to anyone using the Sawzall, which again is mostly going to be me.
Anything else?
This is where you release the blade. One thing you want to make sure if you're actually using it that the blade is well seated. If you have to reseat it or change the blade, you should probably take the battery pack out just to be sure. So it's easy. Pull it up, and it comes out, and then you put it back in.
And in fact, you can also put it back in upside down. It has actually 4 different ways you can put the blade in. There's a sideways one that has the same release, so try putting it in sideways. I haven't had a lot of occasion to use it sideways, but it's an option.
Okay, and this is the shoe. Usually you want to have your material up against there, so you're pulling and it's actually...
That's a very good point. If you don't secure the material you're cutting against that backing, that shoe, then the saw, either your hand or the material, something's going to go for a ride back and forth. It's going to catch.
Hold your muscle.
You may want to have someone else, for example, holding the conduit in place as you're doing the cut, so you can force yourself against the conduit. Or I have a technique where I use one hand to hold the conduit safely against the shoe while I'm using my other hand with the trigger. But just have to be very careful with a tool like this that there's a lot of things that could go wrong if you don't know how to use it. So if you do find yourself in a position to use it, make sure you're comfortable with how it works and that you get instruction to use it before you go for it. Any questions about any of the tools we've covered at this point? So, go ahead.
Just as far as we're wearing gloves with all of these, and is that the standard?
Yeah, I think
Can you?
most of these tools can be used with or without gloves. The I'd say maybe with the chop saw, possibly a little bit better not to use gloves because there's always a chance with the circular saw that if you have a loose glove, for example, it could get sucked into the saw and pull your hand with it. So I would go bare hands with the chop saw. The circular saw has been modified. Other than that, you can wear gloves or not wear gloves as you feel comfortable. You might have slightly better control over the triggers without a gloved hand. So, but it's